I'm a zoologist by training. I did my first degree at Cambridge in England, but before I went to university I had a gap year in Kenya. And the gap year in Kenya came about by reading a wonderful book called Serengeti Shall Not Die. And there were these photographs of these zebra-striped airplanes flying across the Serengeti plain, and I thought, that's what I want to do. And I wrote to an organization that had just started up at that time. This was 1961, called World Wildlife Fund. And they gave me a gap year job in Kenya, and I've been in Africa ever since I graduated. And I think it's so interesting to me to see how things have changed since I first started working, because going to Kafue Park in 1965, there were no fancy computers, there were no electronic devices to connect you to the rest of the world, and our basic tools were a notebook, a pair of binoculars and your 2 feet. And it's quite amazing how much work you can get done with those basic tools. What motivates me now is, when I first started working in Africa, nobody thought outside the fence. Here was a national park, and here were the boundaries, and outside were people living. And the people seemed irrelevant to what we were doing. Nobody thought about issues like resource economics. Nobody thought about issues such as community-based natural resource management, CBNRM, the things we take for granted nowadays. And of course, nobody thought about biodiversity. It's a new term. And back in 1965, our emphasis was on large mammals. It was dealing with how you manage a national park. And nobody thought about the fact that one day we had to think about the smaller animals and the smaller plants, right the way down to the microorganisms. Because of course biodiversity conservation is not just elephants and buffalo and the big species, it's every single living organism. And that, I think, is where conservation has changed. We've now got to think about why we're conserving biodiversity, what the challenges are, and how we can get other people to buy in what we're trying to do. I think it was probably reading Bernard Jimmick's book called Serengeti Shall Not Die, and that got me out in Africa in the first place. And I was very privileged to meet him. He came out when I was working in the Kafue Park in 1965, just after I arrived there. And he was a wonderful person. He was totally passionate about conservation. And I think he, probably more than anyone else, got me to go out to Africa. And then my supervisor from Cambridge days, Professor Roger Short, I did a PhD on elephants. And it got me to appreciate how important a supervisor or a mentor can be. Because he was my supervisor, he was my mentor. He took an interest in me as an individual. He put me in touch with networks. He gave me the opportunity to, I suppose, develop myself and believe in myself. And that's incredibly important in this whole business of mentoring. We have to take an interest in the people we're mentoring as individuals and really give them every encouragement to the future. Well, at the moment, I'm retired, or supposed to be retired, but I think I'm just getting useful. And I'm now working in this as an independent consultant, but still involved with working with students at universities, still involved with a number of projects in Mozambique and Zambia and elsewhere. And in those projects, I meet a lot of young people who you look at and you think, these are people who have potential for the future. And what I like to do is to work with those young people, to put them in touch with others working in this field, to give them encouragement and basically to mentor them. And a lot of the work I do nowadays is involved in trying to encourage people, hopefully, to be the conservation leaders of the future. I'm also chairman of something called the Lapalala Wilderness School. And the mission of the Lapalala Wilderness School is to get people to appreciate this extraordinary biodiversity we have around us, but then also to encourage and mentor those who have the potential to be the leaders of the future. See, it's not old people like me anymore who are the leaders, it's the younger generation coming through. And I think our challenge is to instill in them a sense of passion for the work they're doing, and a belief that this is not just a job, this is something that can really make a difference, and to get them to go into a career perhaps where they can make a difference. I just had my 70th birthday, and I suppose in 5 years' time or 10 years' time, I want to be doing what I'm doing now. I think I can still make a difference. People say, are you retired? And I don't think I am. I think I'm going to continue to hopefully inspire and help other people who are coming through in the field of environmental conservation.